and busiest port in the whole of Europe. It's far from that now, but because of the port and the wealth that brought to the area, that's why we have such a city as we have today. I mean, yes, it was a very wealthy city at one time, and wealth made on the backs of trade. The trade was cotton, leather, most importantly of all, in today's world and the way we look at that history, the slave trade. So the wealth of Liverpool was on the back of the slave trade. So we have some very imposing buildings. I'll say this really does demonstrate how wealthy the city was at one time. It's a small city. I mean, it's compared to cities like Istanbul or Alexandria, as we were looking yesterday, it's tiny. But we have a phrase in the UK, it's called punching above your weight. So visitors to Liverpool would think it was a much more important city. We have all the attributes of a big city, but the population is only around 750,000. The docks themselves have been refurbished, and the old warehouses and have now become a major tourist attraction. And they include a major art gallery, and the building with the red pillars was a TV company for many years. So it's a vibrant area full of shops, nightclubs, restaurants, and other cultural activities. And this all has happened over the last 20, 30 years. The major immigration to Liverpool has come from, in the 1750s, Liverpool had the largest black community in the whole of Europe. And also, we have a very high Chinese population. The Chinese came as seamen, and a lot of them stayed, settled down in Liverpool. And our Chinatown is quite a big area. And this Chinese arch is the largest Chinese arch outside China. Or so people from Liverpool say. It might rival the one in Los Angeles, but I think it is one of the largest outside China anyway. But the important influence on Liverpool was the Irish immigration. I think it's 50% of people who live in Liverpool today can trace their heritage back to Ireland. And this was because of the so-called potato famine in Ireland in the middle of the 19th century, when people were so desperate they had to leave Ireland. And they had to leave Ireland mainly to travel to the Americas, but they had to come via Liverpool. Many of them could only afford to get as far as Liverpool. Many of them were conned into believing they'd arrived in America because they didn't know any different. And so the Irish influence, the Irish people here have had a huge influence on the city, including the local dialect. If any of you have been to Liverpool, you're probably aware that sometimes the English as spoken in Liverpool is impenetrable. Even for somebody like myself who's lived in this area for a long time, I still find it quite difficult sometimes to understand some of the true Liverpudlians, as they're called. One of the big changes, and one that really pushed the regeneration of the city, was when in 2008 it was the capital of culture. All sorts of activities took place during that year, and it put Liverpool on the international map. A lot of people were critical. People from Liverpool, Scousers as they're called, can be very critical of everything, and rightly so in many cases. But they are notorious for their strong attitudes to things, and were very critical of the capital of culture. Why are we spending all this money on culture? What's it doing for us? But the major thing it did do was suddenly Liverpool stopped feeling sorry for itself. And it was the knock-on effect. Very few people at the time benefited directly, but what it did do, it was a catalyst for change in the city, and certainly a start for the growth of the creative industries in Liverpool and how that has affected the city. And that's why I work there, and that's the role that I have in working with young creatives within the creative industry. As you know, music has been very important to Liverpool. We all, I think, even the younger people amongst us today, recognize the fact that the 60s brought about a huge change in music, influenced by the musicians of Liverpool. There's a famous quote from Allen Ginsberg, the beat poet at the time. He said that Liverpool is at present moment the center of the consciousness of the human universe. That might not be a true quote. In fact, he never ever visited Liverpool. But he also said Liverpool was the center of the creative universe. That also might be a misquote. But I think it's very true of how music has been such a focal point for Liverpool and the culture of Liverpool. The music scene in Liverpool today is, in fact, probably far more vibrant than it was in the 60s. I mean, I can remember the music scene of the 60s, even though I wasn't based in Liverpool. And yes, you know, we had the Beatles and all the music that came from that Mersey beat sound from that time. But today, music is probably, I say, more important, more significant than it even was in the 60s. That development of culture in the city and the creativity around all that has resulted in a creative quarter. And this is where I work in Liverpool. And it's, again, very much part of the regeneration of the city, where old buildings, old warehouses, and in this case, the buildings you're looking at it's an old brewery and that stopped brewing beer about 10 years ago and has been totally transformed into an amazing sort of vibrant area of artist studios, restaurants, and music venues. In fact, that building there, with the one that says Baltic on it, is the very building that I work in. And you can see the building behind one of the old warehouses that's been transformed totally. And that building is, in fact, being converted into a high school based on the creative and digital industries. So students study there from 14 to 18-year-old who are going to specialize in digital and creative careers. Another example of one of the old warehouses that's been transformed by really just, I mean, that now, in that building, there are about 10 studios. Some of the companies working out there are some of the top digital design companies, and I can say in the world. The top floor is occupied by a company associated with Tencent. Tencent is, I think Tencent is the third largest digital company in the world. second only to Microsoft and Facebook, and they have a company that works out of there. The other important influence on Liverpool and what makes it what it is today are the universities. There are 4 major universities in the city. And so it is a student-centered city. And the result of that is that it's actually a cheap city to live in. You know, you can go out as a young person in the evening and have free entertainment. Eating out, drinking out is very, very reasonable compared to some of the other cities in the UK, and certainly compared to London. I mean, it's far, far cheaper to live in Liverpool. Rents for apartments are half what you'd pay in London, and are far better. Also, one of the universities is the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. People call this the Paul McCartney School because he was responsible for supporting the development of this place, and it probably has the best recording studio in the north of England. It's based actually in the university itself, and a lot of my clients are graduates from LIPA when they're moving from university into making a career in music or performance or theatre design. We have a very significant digital industry in Liverpool, and the universities support that industry. This is a building called Sensor House, and it's totally focused on the development of sensors and how they are used in all the new technologies, including domestic appliances and things. Art and design is so important in the universities. You may be aware that people like John Lennon studied at the Liverpool School of Art, a very important school of art and design. So again, you've got a lot of young people coming to Liverpool from around the country and realizing it's a great place to be, and they stay. And they make their careers within the city, and it's retaining that intellectual property, if you like, within the city that helps the development and regeneration of the city. Because of the Irish influence on the city, we have 2 cathedrals, 2 amazing cathedrals. This is the Catholic Cathedral, and at the other end of the street we have the Anglican, the Protestant Cathedral. This looks like an ancient cathedral, but in fact it was only completed, finally finished, in the 1970s, and it's the largest cathedral in the UK. It's a magnificent building, and it's used not just for religious services, but art events, music, etc. is held within the cathedral because it's such a massive open space inside. So we have the influence of Irish Catholicism, Anglican, Protestant across the city. This, I mean, it is quite. I mean, it's very much part of the intercultural aspect of the city that you've got this influence across the majority of the population. And it's also, whoops, we seem to have suddenly not been able to move on. Bear with me. There we go. We have a football team called Everton, some of you may have heard of, and they're the Catholic football team. So if you're an Everton supporter, it's more than likely that if not you, your family have a Catholic Irish background. And Liverpool is the Protestant team. And there's Liverpool's favourite Egyptian. And the Liverpool team is probably better known internationally than Everton. And you've got this friendly rivalry between the two football teams. I'm just going to go on to the significance of the slave trade, because this is so important to Liverpool. And with the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment, again, it's been raised as an important issue within the city. You may be aware that a lot of, in the UK, there's been a lot of talk of removing statues of people that were associated with our colonial and slave past. And the same thing is true in Liverpool. Only here it's more significant with the street names. So there are many street names associated with the past trade. For example, the street that I work on is called Jamaica Street, where a lot of the slaves from the Caribbean came. And the street was named after the trade between Liverpool and the Caribbean. And a lot of the streets were named after people who made their money, made their wealth from the slave trade. And it's, why are we not moving on when we should? So there's a lot of talk and movement about removing these names. And it's getting a mixed reaction across the city. There's been many cases also around how badly treated Chinese immigrants and Chinese seamen were treated as well over the years. And as recent as the early 1950s, just after the Second World War, late 1940s, Chinese seamen were rounded up and sent back to China. In the video, you're going to see one of the women talk about the fact that her father mysteriously disappeared overnight because he was Chinese and nobody knew where he'd gone. They assumed he was playing mahjong, but never came back, and then realized that other Chinese that had settled after the Second World War in Liverpool had disappeared. I mean, it's a disgraceful episode of the British past, recent past. It's not going to do it. So these are some of the, this is Penny Lane. You may know the name from the Beatles song, but Mr. Penny was a slave trader. And so hence the graffiti. But all these names were of people that were associated with the slave trade. Okay, I think that's enough on Liverpool. I'm going to show you a bit of this video, probably about 10 minutes of video, and their personal histories of people that have been descendants of immigrants to Liverpool. And it's the interesting thing here is it's descendants of people, intermarriages between Irish, Caribbean, African, Irish, Chinese, and African, the way that at the time there was a lot of intermarriage between, and still is. I mean, the Liverpool is, if you walk down some of the streets in Liverpool, you'll see a lot of mixed race couples, especially amongst the young, because it's that kind of city. Let's move on to the video, if I can find it.
My dual heritage is Barbadian and Irish. My mother's family is from Hove in Dublin. My father's family were from Barbados, the Caribbean. I identify as a black woman, so I say I'm a British-born black woman, but I have a respect for my Irish heritage and involvement in terms of through my mother and her experiences of living and being educated, and then sadly coming away from, and never getting that opportunity to go back. But the fondness from, as far as back as I can remember to the day she died, which was earlier this year, her fondness for Ireland was never ending. I can relate to issues of discrimination, racism and exclusion. And I think because of that, I have empathy for other groups that face it. So one of my other kind of commitments is to be respectful of the likes of the Travellers and the Gypsies, because they're a cultural group. They're a group who believe in a heritage and have faced discrimination for centuries and still have retained their identity. But there are also the similarities and differences, because within the African community, there's also the nomadic tribes who are very similar, in terms of culture, identity, and life experiences, but how they want to live. We should not be able to dictate how people live, or where they choose to live or how they choose to live. We should just respect them as humans who are living. My parents met when my father came to Liverpool as a merchant seaman. My mother had travelled over from Ireland, had originally gone to London, and then found her way into Liverpool, as I'm sure most Irish at the time came to the second Dublin of England, and they met, and I was born in 1962. The family didn't know that she had married, or she had a baby to a black man. And I've got photographs and photographs of me and letters of hers from her family at Danes Hollow, who, after about, I think it was 4 or 5 letters, finally realised that, in their terms, coloured. You've got a beautiful coloured baby, is what they said. But it didn't stop the communication between, my mum and her family over in Hove. But for us, it was really important, because what she instilled in us, because as a woman from Ireland facing discrimination because of her choice, she very quickly instilled in us a sense of pride, because she was a proud woman. So no matter what anyone said to her, she'd hold her head up high. That was a mixture of, good old Irish upbringing and her personality, her commitment to being a lady. But it was really sad for us to hear, but I'm so glad for her instilling in me the understanding of the heritage of both the Irish experience around discrimination at the time, as well as the Black experience. So it's obvious that I was going to become who I am today, that I was going to advocate against racism and discrimination in any form to any people. You know, I don't just fight for the Black cause, I fight for all discriminatory causes. And I like to believe that I have a good knowledge of history of both communities that have faced the traumatic historical context of their journey as citizens in countries. I know the history of my family mostly through the storytelling, the oral storytelling, as is the case very much within both the African, Caribbean and the Irish community, in that, you know, our history is not written or hasn't always been correctly written. So the oral history tradition has been retained and moved on. I think what we're getting now is an opportunity to delve into our historical context of who we are, where we're from, and what contributions we made, whether that was to our city or to our community or to our culture.
I seem to identify more with the Chinese side of the family. I'm not sure where my mother's family was in Ireland. Her maiden name was Duddy, and we just knew that she had an Irish connection. Yet my father came from Shanghai on the Blue Funnel Line. I don't actually know how they met, no, I don't. All I knew was that my mum came home one day and my dad wasn't there, and she thought she was playing Mahjong. And then as time was passing by, she'd found another friend who'd said, oh, her husband or partner, whoever it might have been, wasn't back either. So they just thought she was late playing Mahjong, but apparently they found out, as they panicked a little bit, that a lot of them couldn't be found anywhere, and they just didn't know what had happened to them whatsoever. They were forcibly repatriated, and that's like I just can't get my head around.
My heritage is mother, white, of Irish descent. Even now, we've heard stories of County Mayo. But when I've tried to trace it back, I've only got the Bernards in Dublin. My father's from Sierra Leone. He's Timony race, Africa. Yeah, my mum and dad met in Stanley House, which was a social club on Parliament Street. So that's where they met. He was a seaman. I identify with my mum's side of the family because I never knew the African side. So all my granddad, my nan, all my great aunties and all my cousins that I speak about are off the white side of the family, the Irish side of the family. I don't have no cousins of the African side. I don't know where they are. But my personal identification, I am mixed race. I'm not the way I was brought up. I come off two strong, powerful, beautiful races, full of culture, which I'm proud of, and I identify as two races. I am mixed race. And everybody in Liverpool knows that you are of Irish. That's how we get our accent. we are of Irish. I mean, even to now, the boundaries, I mean, when I was a child, the religious boundaries were really, really strong. I used to get told stories of like my granddad doing things and things like that, but I think that now has eased a lot, which is for the better. Where we now are more, people say you're Christian rather than Catholic Protestant. When I was a little girl, I was never allowed in that cathedral. The Anglican, I couldn't get in it. I never went in that cathedral till about 5 years ago. We weren't allowed in it. We weren't allowed to look at the Orange Lodge. Say we always wore green on Paddy's Day and our shamrock, even though I used to eat mine on the way up to school because I was a fat child. But yeah, we always things like that. I mean, on a Sunday in our household, the first songs that we had was the Irish Rebel songs. So that used to blast every Sunday morning. Kevin Barry, The Wearing of the Green. So we all know that. After that was the African Freedom, when they got their independence. And then after that, we were allowed our music. So that was a Sunday, every Sunday in our house. So we grew up really with strong Irish culture. As I say, I've got culture from two sides, which a lot of people don't get. I've got lovely hair. And I love being a Gibble heritage. I do love it. I love the fact, I do feel that you're not above, but you're far more aware, because you can see two races, the good and the bad, and then you are an individual race, really, but you're made from them two people. I used to look as a little girl at my mum and dad, if I thought my mum was a film star, thought she was gorgeous. And my dad's a big, tall, strong man. And I used to be so proud, even as a little girl.
I'll leave it there.
Okay, Roy, thank you very much for the videos. I think the participant can ask some question and they can support. For example, myself, Liverpool is an industrial city, as I know, and there are many foreigners from Ireland, China, many countries, and also it is a university city. You are lucky living there, Roy, in Liverpool.
I know, I can say that, and I can be quite proud of the city, because I don't come from Liverpool. I come from the other big industrial area of the Midlands. So I've lived here since 1970. So it's very much my home. But when I first moved here, I always used to look to the other city of Manchester and not Liverpool. And then I discovered Liverpool, and I mean, it's my home, and it's such a wonderful place to be, because there's so much cultural activities going on. You've got the vibrance coming from the young people, from the students. I mean, I'm not particularly into football, but of course I have to support Liverpool. You know, it's just part of, you know, you have to. So it is a great place to be, and we've got the river. I mean, in a way, it's the Mersey. It isn't quite like Istanbul, but it's in the way that the Bosphorus in Istanbul is so important. The Mersey is for us, and similarly, I live on the other side of the Mersey, away from the city. And travel either through the tunnel or on the ferry to get into town, so it's only because the mix and the vibrance comes from being a port, you know, you go to Shanghai, you go to Istanbul or wherever, and you're aware of those influences, aren't you? And the cities are because of being important, significant ports for so many years. Even in that little clip of the women talking, you know, they were seamen that came over and married into, in this case, Irish families. So you know, a lot of the people I know have that background and that heritage.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Are there any support from the participant about Liverpool and Liverpool cultural city?
Yes, for me, the people of Liverpool are called Liverpool Lions, I think. And their most common nickname is the Scousers.
Futbol takımı ne? Liverpool nasıl? Sen izliyor musun?
Yes.
Sen
Right?
izliyor musun?
Yeah, Scousers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm a supporter of Liverpool football team, I discovered throughout football that the residents of Liverpool speak a very special English dialect.
Indeed, they do.
They always added the letter of in the end of this, right?
But of course, that dialect, as we were talking, comes from the Irish influence and also the Welsh influence, and that's why it's this strange mix. So sometimes it's impenetrable. You can hardly understand what people are saying sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Vadi. Maybe we can pass to Istanbul because it is our lunchtime. We should hurry. Vadi, can you give the co-host to Abdullah? You already co-host.
He is already a co-host.
Yes, Abdullah, can you share the screen? Now we are talking about Istanbul. You know, Istanbul is a well-known city. The history of Istanbul goes 90,000 years ago, and Istanbul was also capital of very big empires like Roman Empire, Byzantine, and Ottoman Empire. As you know, Istanbul is located between two continents, Asia and Europe. And also Istanbul is 16 million population inhabitant. And Istanbul is bigger than around 50 countries. There is 3 airports in Istanbul, and nowadays it is getting one of the biggest air traffic hub, international hub in the region. And Istanbul also 15th most visited city in the world. Istanbul was capital of Europe, and Istanbul was also European capital of sport. There are, as I know, there are more than 70 museums, more than 100 shopping malls, many historical bazaars. There are many imperial palace and summer palace, pavilion, etc. I think we can pass the videos about Istanbul, then we can discuss about Istanbul and Istanbul cultural life and many cultural aspects. We can start after the first video, please. I think we have some problem with the video. Can you share again, Abdullah, the video. Yok, sesi çıkarmıyor. Sen oradan mikrofonu değiştireceksin herhalde. Ses yok ama. Okay, thank you, Abdullah. Maybe we can pass the next video. As you see, Istanbul is a cultural and very dynamic city. By the way, Oya, welcome. You can pass the second video, Abdullah, please. Yes, you had a panorama from drone, one of the drone view. And now we are going to share one more video. It is about Turkish cuisine. We will continue with the new video.
Did you know Turkish cuisine is one of the top 10 cuisines in the world? Today, I'm going to take you on a gastronomic journey. Turkey sits on a historical trade route as it was a critical stop on the Silk Road. For caravans heading both east and west, Turkey was a gateway. That's why Turkish cuisine became the melting pot of many cuisines. In Turkish culinary tradition, you can find traces of dozens of cuisines, from Central Asia all the way to Europe. Güzel mi? Nasıl? Güzel. But Turkish cuisine is more than fusion. It is also refinement, and a key ingredient is olive oil. Especially during the Ottoman reign, hundreds of local dishes were refined in the Sultan's kitchen, and one of the greatest cuisines in the world was born.
And that one, the green beans. That one, the goulash, is the beef meat with tomato sauce.
Yeah.
And the plain rice.
Plain rice.
And
And what? Appetizers. That's the meze, right? The variety of Turkish cuisine is absolutely impressive. From soups to mezes, meat dishes, vegetarian dishes, pastries to desserts, there's a heavenly delicacy for every gusto. What's more, historical culinary traditions of blending and refining are still alive today. Modern Turkish cuisine is highly regarded by experts. No wonder Istanbul has one of the most sophisticated culinary scenes in the world. Discover all this and more in Turkey, home of Turkish cuisine.
Roy, you know, we have lunchtime. We should go to a kebab house in Turkey. Now we will see the last video, Abdullah. Baştan göstersen Kadir. Ses yine bunda gelmiyor. Yok ses. Yok ses.
In life, there is this Turkish saying, "Boş ver, fark etmez," which means something like, "Don't worry, doesn't matter." And I think this just underlines the meaning of letting small things go, because there are other things to worry in life. And I just really like this mentality that they have. Turkey is extremely interesting. Istanbul, for example, it's been here since empires, and the history dates back to before our time, you know, extremely interesting. It's a city of culture, history, art, tourism, architecture, beaches, nature, surrounded by seas, forests, and hills. And it's basically a city where you take a boat to get to work. I mean, how amazing is that? And hands down, Turkey has amazing food to offer. I know it's not a secret that Turkish cuisine is one of the best cuisines out there in the world. And I'm not referring to the Turkish doner sandwich, no. there's much more than that, and it starts with the breakfast. Turks also have great soups, they have good coffee, amazing desserts, fresh fish, and good quality meat. There are endless local bazaars and also really modern and international restaurants ranging from sushi to vegan options. So I'm telling you, everyone can find really great food here. Turkey's nature. I think this is something that people should appreciate more, because I think Turkey's nature is just incredible. They have UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They have so many unique landscapes that you will find only in Turkey and nowhere else in this world. They have an amazing seaside. They have the east that's full of cultural sites. They have mountains. They have cave cities. They have salt terraces. Guys, everything, Turkey's nature never disappoints me. Time management, yes, as a German, I think it's kind of weird to say that, but Turks are not so strict with many things in life, also when it comes to timing, to small rules. And this basically means that they, I feel, enjoy their life a little bit more than cultures that are extremely strict with rules and other tiny things in life. Also, the life in Turkey happens on the streets or outside. Turks love having barbecues in summer, they love going camping, there's music everywhere, and of course, the day is ending and starting with a chai. I feel like this is just something that really adds to life quality. That being said, the life quality that Turkey offers is just so much higher for me than anywhere else in the world. They have really good health system, people are educated, life in Turkey is quite affordable. It is, I would say, not extremely difficult to make a living here as a foreigner, but of course there are big differences living here as a Turk versus a foreigner. But generally spoken, the life in Turkey is not bad. It's not the place to earn a lot of money, but it's more about life quality. Animal friendly. I've never been to a country or especially a city like Istanbul where have people been so friendly and welcoming to street animals like cats and dogs. They really take care of them. You can see people feeding them, not taking them into their homes, but giving them a home on the street. And this is something so unique. I've never seen that anywhere else in the world. And I think this is something very beautiful. Okay, this is another thing, but Turkey is geographically a very great location, which means that it's extremely easy to reach any Asian country and also Europe or African countries. Istanbul has one of the biggest airports in the world, which makes it extremely easy for me to visit my family or for other people to visit me. That being said, that Turkey is in such a great geographic location, it also offers really great weather. And this is, I guess, one of the big reasons why I love living here. We have great summers, which means that it's basically never raining, it's really sunny and just great summer, which we don't have in Germany. They have good autumns, decent winters, also spring is just amazing, seeing all these flowers popping out of the dead earth. I love the weather here. The Turkish language. I think I've never been more fascinated by a language than the Turkish one. It's just so different than any European language that I ever tried to learn, because no matter how much you want to say, you can basically stuff a whole sentence into only one word in the Turkish language. And I think this is just so impressive. It makes learning Turkish so much fun. The safety in Turkey. Yes, it is safe to live in Turkey. I feel extremely safe here. I've never felt unsafe. I can walk around freely. I can basically do whatever I want. Turks generally do respect all kinds of people, and they are in general very protective and try to always help out. So this makes it for me a country where I feel very safe to live in. Of course, I'm aware of the earthquakes, I'm aware of terrorist attacks, but to be honest, this can happen everywhere in the world. But by talking about the Turkish culture, the people, I feel extremely safe and welcomed. Turkish hospitality and kindness. In Turkey, hospitality is everything. And I've encountered endless situations of kindness and hospitality, no matter if it's our neighbor inviting us over for food, the extreme kindness that I experience in my daily life or at my workplace. Turkish kindness and hospitality is something that is very, very big here. I also learned a lot of things from Turks when it comes to being kind and generous. Turkish hospitality is just very unique, and I feel that Turks would always help you whenever they can. Also, Turks love having this community feeling, so wherever you live in Turkey, you will quickly understand that there is like a community neighborhood feeling that you will get integrated into very quickly. It's all about sharing food, talking with each other, and the feeling that they give you of being part of them or feeling included is just one out of many reasons why I have chosen to make this country my home.
Bitirelim. Okay. Thanks. Good words for Turkey. Maybe we can take some reflection from Sabina because she lived in Istanbul. Sabina, please say something about Istanbul.
Yeah, hello to everybody. I was living in Asian part of Istanbul, and I have to say that I miss it so much because Istanbul is so intercultural. Intercultural. Yeah, it has also good nights and bars and cinemas and theaters. You can find everything, but it's really intercultural city with people from everywhere. So I had friends from India, from America, from Russia, from all Europe. So I was really happy. And of course, I was really happy with food.
Okay, thanks, Sabina. Roy, it's your turn. I think you have been many times in Istanbul.
Not many times, but I've been a couple of times. I've got friends in the eastern part of Istanbul, in Kadıköy.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Kadıköy, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I want to live. I mean, you know, that area, I just love it there, and that right through. So, and as you say, Sabina, the food is amazing. The people are very hospitable, and again, as was reflected in the video, I felt very safe walking around. My Turkish is non-existent, but it didn't make any difference. I could go through the markets and visit anywhere I wanted to go, and got through easy, catching the ferries, etc. I mean, the size of the city is overwhelming. The traffic is overwhelming. You know, you try get from the airport to eastern Istanbul, can take hours, can't it? You can get stuck on the bridge and all that kind of thing. But it's part of Istanbul. It's the kind of aspects of Istanbul you have to accept. Again, a personal view. I mean, I question the politics of Erdogan and his associates, and hopefully there will be some positive change in the future. I don't know when and how, but I mean, as I say, the politics of Turkey seems to be going backwards. And I think Ataturk would turn in his grave, as they say. But that aside, it's like a lot of countries. You know, it's the people that matter. It's not the politicians and the politics of a country. And the people are wonderful. You can go to many places in the world and disagree with the leaders of the country. America's another good example, isn't it? Russia's another example. It's everywhere, but it's always the people that are important and matter, and they're wonderful.
Okay, thanks, Roy. Oya, maybe you can say something about Istanbul. I think you have been many times. And Vadi, you will talk
Yes.
about Istanbul too, huh?
Yes, yes. I was in Istanbul very lot of times. I know it. So about I didn't see the durum kebab in the food in the video of foods. This is first because durum kebab is one of most beautiful food in Turkey and in Europe too. And also, what about the violin sema when dancers turn around them with music, with Sofi music, with the face? What about that?
Okay. Oya, you can answer maybe.
Yeah, I think you're asking the dancers, and you can find them in Konya. It's a very religious city, and it's a traditional dance. It's a form of prayer actually, and their hand movements, they have specific meanings. It symbolizes, let's say, taking from God and giving it to the human beings, etc. So it's a ritual more than a dance, but it's very popular among tourists. I hope this answers your question. It's a very, I understand, it's something to remember when you see it. And what I can say about this video is that I have seen actually a bit too much of stereotyping, like even when they show a little character with faz, like when they are showing how it is in Turkey or hospitality also. Because I don't think it's the same for everybody. It depends who you are and from which country you're coming from in terms of hospitality. So for instance, if you're coming from an underdeveloped country, people won't be that nice to you. So that point of view was, I think, a little bit limited and a little bit whitewashed. Maybe, I don't know if it's the right term, but again, at the end of the day, it's my country and I love everything's happening in Istanbul in terms of how people are trying to be hospitable when it comes to others or people from other countries. But I totally agree with Roy. We're going backwards and we're having a lot of issues, but it's nice to hear for expats and tourists. It's still a good experience.
Okay. Thank you very much, Oya. Are there any reflection about the videos or Istanbul? More? Okay, Vadi, I think we should stop here. I think I like this workshop. I just joined today this workshop. That's why, you know, Esmeralda was on vacation. That's why I was in charge of to moderate this workshop. But we are not well prepared. So I think I liked the workshop, and thanks, Roy, for giving more information about Liverpool. And we like Liverpool, and we should make Liverpool and Istanbul sister city. What do you think?
I'll advocate that, and as long as it means I can get to Istanbul more often, yes.
You will be our guest. Vadi, by the way, we are changing to meeting from Antalya to Istanbul. You should come the third week of June to Istanbul.
I wish.
I wish.
You wish,
Yeah.
okay. Because you know, Turkey and Morocco made an agreement with recognizing the you know, vaccine passport. That's why you can come very easily. Because you passed the COVID, and if you have certificate, you can enter any barrier. Okay,